You know, some names just stick with you, don't they? Menace of Destruction. Sounds like something out of a movie.
It does, but it's very real. A gang with a long history and a surprisingly wide reach across the U.S.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. Who are the Menace of Destruction, or MOD? Where did they come from? What's their story?
We've got this informational document that lays a lot of it out. History, activities, reach.
Right. So our mission here is pretty straightforward. Unpack this document, pull out the key info on MOD, and give you, our listeners, a clear picture, the essential story.
Let's do it. And right off the bat, what's striking is, like you said, their longevity and reach. Founded way back in 1988.
In Fresno, California. And originally, they weren't even Menace of Destruction, were they?
No, the first name was Masters of Destruction.
Masters of Destruction. Okay, so why the change to Menace? The document mentions something about that.
Yeah, apparently around 91, the younger members pushed for it, felt it, reflected their youth better.
Youth is right. They reportedly had members as young as 12 then. 12.
It really grounds the story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you have to connect that to the bigger picture, the why behind it all.
Which goes back to the Hmong refugees, right? After the Vietnam War, mid-70s onwards.
Exactly. Many settled in these, well, difficult urban areas, described as ghettos in the source, and they faced a lot of hostility.
Prejudice, bullying, racism. The document is pretty clear on that.
Reports of families being robbed, people getting assaulted, just constant threats.
So the initial impulse, it was self-preservation, kids banding together.
It seems that way, yeah. A sort of brotherhood for protection against those threats.
It's a story you hear sometimes, how that need for safety can twist, you know, if there isn't support.
Well put. What started as defense, sadly, seems to have shifted towards violence and crime.
And there's another layer, too. MOD actually broke off from another Hmong group.
Right. Peace MOD. Formed earlier around 1985, supposedly also for community protection.
Peace MOD. So the split. Any ideas why?
The document suggests maybe a power struggle. Things fractured.
And MOD wasn't the only splinter group, was it?
No, you also had the Mongolian Boys Society, MBS, and the Oriental Ruthless Boys, ORB, emerging around the same time.
Okay, so right from the start, you've got built-in rivalries. These groups breaking off from the same root.
Exactly. That split kind of set the stage for future conflicts.
So they form in Fresno, deal with this internal split. Then what? How did they get so widespread?
Well, they've been active basically since 88, right up to the present day. And the spread.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
The list of states is huge. Let me see. California, Wisconsin, Colorado, Minnesota, North Carolina, Georgia, Oregon, South Carolina, Michigan, Texas, Alaska, Washington, Oklahoma.
13 states, yeah.
How does that even happen? Just pure recruitment.
It seems the main engine was relocation. Members moved, maybe their families moved to other towns, other states.
And they just set up shop? A new MOD clique?
Essentially, yes. Planting seeds in new places. It shows how these things can spread organically through, social networks. Not always some grand strategy.
And this also created friction with local gangs already there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. New group moving in, tensions rise.
The Portland example is interesting. Smaller Hmong community there.
So they reportedly started recruiting Vietnamese migrants to boost numbers, compete with biker gangs, other street gangs already established, show some adaptability.
Definitely. And then in Minnesota, the Twin Cities, they took over an existing Hmong gang.
Yeah, the White Tigers, reportedly one of the first Hmong gangs there. MOD basically displaced them, suggests a pretty forceful takeover.
Okay, so origins and protection turning criminal, internal splits creating rivals, then this massive geographic spread through relocation and sometimes strategic recruiting.
It sets the stage for, well, what they did, the criminal activities.
And that list is long. Prostitution, drug trafficking, mainly marijuana and meth, it says.
Weapon trafficking, assault, burglary, robbery, kidnapping, theft, and murder.
It's serious stuff. The document calls them one of the most violent and notorious Asian gangs.
And significantly the only Hmong gang officially recognized by the U.S. government.
That federal recognition, it speaks volumes about their impact, unfortunately.
It does. And the document gives some pretty chilling examples of the violence.
That 93 Sacramento incident, retaliation gone wrong.
Seems like it. Retaliating for a MOD member's death, they apparently shot at Tiny Little Rascals members.
But ended up killing someone from the Asian family gangsters in a drive-by.
Exactly. Shows that chaotic cycle of violence. Yeah. And the unpredictable consequences.
Plus involvement in killing Lao gang members around the same time, 93 and 95.
Right. Then the 98 Spokane standoff. MOD members wanted for a California drive-by. cornered in Washington state, again showing that interstate activity.
Fast forward a bit, 2002, they're called the most active gang in Merced, California. Back in their original territory, still very active.
But that 2005 pool hall shooting in Minnesota, that seems particularly tragic.
Columbia Heights, mistaken identity, attacking Tibetan American.
Yes, 2 people killed, several injured, just awful. And the sentences were huge, 126 years for 2 members.
And some involved in that shooting, Ya Tao He, Si Lor, Feng Vang, they went on to commit more crimes.
In Wisconsin, yeah. Armed robbery, attempted homicide, shooting at police. It suggests a deep pattern of violence for some individuals.
The violence just seems relentless. 2007, St. Paul, another incident with police, shots fired. A MOD member dies by suicide after a crash.
Mitchell Mua, yeah.
Yeah.
Wanted on felony charges at the time.
And then things seem to escalate in terms of organization. The 2012 drug ring bust.
Right, Twin Cities again. MOD working with the La Familia cartel.
La Familia, that's a major Mexican cartel.
It is. Trafficking meth from Mexico. That suggests a shift, maybe, to more sophisticated, large-scale drug operations, not just street-level stuff.
Accessing those bigger networks.
Exactly. Higher-level criminal enterprise.
But still, the sort of baseline street crime continued, too. 2013, Woodbury, Minnesota, car theft with a shaved key.
Shows those ongoing criminal skills and activity.
And 2014, St. Paul again.
Yeah.
Robbery, carjacking, shooting at police, member fatally wounded. It just keeps going.
We also see them pop up in Oklahoma, that 2013 shooting at a Hmong New Year's festival in Tulsa. Suspects possibly linked to MOD.
And Wisconsin seems to have had a lot of activity over the years.
Definitely. Incidents going back to the mid-90s, a tavern stabbing in 94 near Wausau.
An attack on girls in a car in 95, Wausau.
A 2002 shooting in Wausau involving MOD and the Oriental Ruthless Boys rivals we mentioned earlier. 2 teens wounded.
2004, Eau Claire, shooting at a MOD member's home by another rival gang, Ruthless Crip Gangsters.
Then big federal indictments. March 2010, 17 MOD members in Milwaukee. Violence, meth, ecstasy sales.
And more charges just 2 months later, May 2010.
15 members in Milwaukee County. Racketeering, battery, burglary, linked to a turf war with groups like the Asian Crips. Over 120 shootings mentioned in connection with that.
120 shootings, wow.
Yeah, and even into 2011, another meth ring bust in Wisconsin tied to MOD. Eau Claire, Chippewa Falls.
Yeah, it's an overwhelming amount of criminal activity across decades and states.
It really is a sustained pattern.
So with all this going on, how does law enforcement identify them? Colors, tattoos?
Primarily red. That's the main color associated with MOD.
Though sometimes blue or gray, depending on the state.
Apparently, yeah. Different cliques might vary slightly, and tattoos are key.
MOD, obviously. And that number, 301.
Right. The document explains it's based on letter positions. M is the 3rd letter.
O is treated as 0, and D is the first letter, but you combine the 0 and 1.
Kind of, yeah. M3O0D1. 301. It's their specific code.
Interesting. Okay, what about allies and enemies? Who were they aligned with, and who were they fighting?
The document lists only one specific ally. Tiny little rascals.
TLR. Okay, that connects back to that 93 Sacramento incident. Tensions involving them.
Seems so.
Yeah.
But the rival list? It's long.
Let's see. Alliance, Asian Crips, Asian Family Gangsters, Fresno Bulldogs, Hmong Nation Society, Junior Criminal Crips, Laotian Posse, Oriental Ruthless Boys, Oroville Mono Boys, Ruthless Crip Gangsters, Tiny Rascal Gang.
Yeah, a lot of conflict potential there. Explains some of the widespread violence we discussed. Fighting on many fronts.
So after all this history, decades of activity, violence, expansion, what's the situation now? Are they still as prominent?
Well, the document suggests maybe not. There's talk of dwindling membership in recent years.
Really? Why the decline?
Couple reasons suggested. One is just the general appeal of that kind of gang culture fading among urban Hmong youth, a broader trend, perhaps.
Okay.
And the other, more positive reason cited is growing prosperity, more economic resources, more opportunities for the younger generations in Hmong communities.
Ah, so maybe the conditions that pushed people towards gangs initially are lessening. Better opportunities, education.
Exactly. Successful assimilation plays a role too. Second, third generations integrating more into mainstream American society, following their parents' example of hard work.
That makes sense. Less need for that kind of alternative structure or identity.
Potentially, yeah. But the document makes a crucial final point.
Which is?
Despite this possible decline, MOD is still considered one of the oldest active Hmong gangs in America, and one of the oldest active Asian street gangs in Northern California.
So they haven't just vanished. Their legacy, their history, it's still there.
Undeniably, their impact has been significant and long-lasting, even if current numbers are lower.
Okay, so let's quickly recap for everyone listening. We've looked at Menace of Destruction.
MOD. From their roots in Fresno, late 80s, born out of hardship faced by Hmong refugees.
Evolving from protection into, well, serious crime. Spreading across more than a dozen states.
Driven mainly by member relocation. Involved in a whole range of criminal activities, from drug trafficking to extreme violence.
We touched on how they're identified the color red, the 301 tattoo code.
Their ally, tiny little rascals, and that long list of rivals fueling conflict.
And finally, their current status. Reports of declining membership, possibly due to changing social conditions and increased opportunity.
But still historically significant as one of the oldest Hmong and Asian gangs still active.
Right. Which leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If a group like MOD started, at least partly, as a way to find protection in a hostile environment, what does it tell us when things change?
Like, how do improved opportunities and societal shifts actually affect the path of groups like this over decades?
And what does MOD's continued existence, even if diminished, suggest about the complexities that immigrant communities face? Assimilation, identity, finding your place. It's not always a simple straight line, something to mull over.